There are so many reasons to plan for the unexpected, and that is especially true when it comes to planning a funeral. In today's Straight Talk with a Funeral Director, we are focusing on families who are already facing financial challenges. Pre-planning a funeral may seem like an unnecessary expense, but in actuality, it can alleviate financial burdens down the line. Jeff Edwards and Beth Buxton with Edwards Funeral Service join me now to explain. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Well, our topic today is Medicaid Spend Down. And before we even start the discussion, Beth, what does that mean?
That simply means when a family is in a crisis almost format where they're trying to make sure that they can spend monies down, they have assets available to pay for medical expenses, possibly a nursing home stay or assisted living facility stay for a loved one, and they're trying to get down to a certain dollar amount so they qualify for Medicaid assistance.
And in regards to that, that's where you come in when you're talking about pre-planning, because there are ways to use some of those assets ahead of time in planning a funeral, right?
That is correct. Paying for funeral expenses in advance, cemetery property expenses, and even monument expenses are legal ways to spend down some of those funds. There's other ways to spend down those monies as well. They have to be approved by the case manager who's helping that family getting qualified for Medicaid.
So Jeff, when someone comes to you and they have this issue, you are able to sit down and go over all the financials with them to help best guide them, because it can be a complicated issue.
It is very complicated, and a lot of times when I am helping a family, it's usually at the end of the month when they're trying to race to get qualified in a nursing home, or a social worker has advised them to go see the funeral director. There's a lot of unknown, and I wish they would have asked questions sooner, but we make it happen in a very rapid day or two at the end of the month so that they can get qualified, for that next month.
And we want to make sure, Beth, that what we're talking about is legal. I mean, and people are advising folks is a way to do that, to save themselves from that heartbreak of then not having any money left for a funeral.
That is right, and it is legal. What we're doing is, and most social workers want families to know about this, but sometimes families aren't educated by the right folks. They don't get the information ahead of time soon enough to be able to make decisions. So it's very important when families are faced with this situation that one of the first things they consider is which funeral service provider they want to use. Go into the funeral home, speak with someone there, see what all their options are, and then go ahead and make the decision of if they want to prepay the funeral expenses. If there's an insurance policy available, they need to make sure they irrevocably assign that policy to the funeral home so that's not counted as an asset.
And that's where I'm a bit confused. Isn't an insurance policy an asset, and don't you have to claim that?
That is accurate in this situation. Medicaid looks at all your assets, including any residences, your vehicles, life insurance policies, investments, and spendable income or monies in the bank. So when families are coming in, they need to get an overall assessment of that, and a funeral director can help with that process.
And Jeff, are there limitations on what you can use some of those assets for? When you're trying to do that spend down? And as a funeral director, which of those services will be able to be used?
There are, and we do. And Beth is very in tune with all the numbers and what is allowed as far as going toward the Medicaid spend down. But primarily it's the funeral arrangements, pre-planning for the person trying to qualify. And then you can even protect or exempt some assets for a spouse, and in certain cases other members of the family for merchandise related items. You can't pre-plan their entire funeral, but you can pre-plan some of the merchandise items like casket, vault. And
that's good to know that they can sort of pay forward in a way.
They can, and what's really good about them being able to make those decisions is then that other part of the asset that's left behind for the surviving spouse is totally left for them to have monies to live on instead of spending their monies towards their own advance plans. Because when that person, that loved one that's in the nursing home is spending down those monies, a lot of times social workers may not know or may not educate the family that you can prepay that person that's in the facility, but you can also look at prepaying that spouse as well. And then, as Jeff was stating, if, for example, the family wants cemetery property, they may want to buy cemetery property for themselves and maybe their children, so they can all be together and not put added burden financially on the family.
Well, this is a great discussion, and I know there are folks out there who really needed this information, so we thank you for sharing it. And your information's been up there too, Beth and Jeff, so that if people do have more questions, they can give you a call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks.